This is just the beginning. That's the world that we live in. Let me help you believe in what we can do when we stand united. We are one with the world. We can make a brighter tomorrow. Together make a change. It's our life. We can't step back from what we know is right. So let's shine our light. Oh, let's shine our light. We won't listen to what they're saying. We know it's just love that we're giving to this place that we call our home. We can't change what's been done, but it's still our run. We are one with the world. We can make a brighter tomorrow. Together make a change. It's our life. We can't step back from what we know is right. So let's shine our light.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to day 4 of Catalyzing Change Week. Thank you to everybody that has taken the time out to organize this session, and all of you that have come here to participate in, attend, and enjoy the session. For those of you who don't know what Catalyst 2030 or Catalyzing Change Week is, Catalyst 2030 is a social innovator-led network, and Catalyzing Change Week is the world's largest social innovator-led event. Over the course of this week, we have had, and today and tomorrow we will also have over 100 sessions on various topics related to the SDGs, systems change, and just making the world a better place to be. So if this is the only session you signed up for, please be sure to have a look at our website and register for others. I'm sure there are going to be others that will massively interest you. And if you're not already members of Catalyst 2030, I will request you to join the membership. I will put the membership form in the chat, and we will be more than happy to welcome you into our Catalyst family. So thank you. Before I hand over to Sergio, who is the fantastic person who is going to be taking lead on this session, I unfortunately have some not so great news to share. We lost one of our members this morning. Poonam Bir Kasturi was a founding member of Catalyst 2030, active member of the India chapter, and the co-founder of Industry, and the founder of Daily Dump. We lost her this morning at 6 o'clock, but she leaves behind a massive legacy. So if we can just, in this session, have a moment's silence for a minute, I would really appreciate it before we move on to the next part. Thank you.
Nishri, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you, everybody. With that, I will pass on to Sergio to start us off. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishri. And was just wondering if we were to hold a minute of silence for so many killed for no reason, for greed, for completely irrational wars and conflicts, our silence would run into months, years, decades. And I'm sure Poonam would want us to remember that as we remember her. So thank you, Poonam, for the very compassionate legacy you have left for us and for the future generations. I'm proud to present here 4 speakers who have not only agreed to be with us today, but have spent time considering the subject and having conversations so that we can have a very enriched discussion today, because we desperately need hope, we desperately need strength. We start with Tasselina Otaino, a very promising young politician from Kenya, who is right now working in the Office of Women Representative of Mombasa County. Thank you, Tasselina, for taking the time to be with us here.
Thank you.
Mohammed Isa is running creativity labs to inspire young children and people to innovate and to think creatively. And one of the hardest work that he's probably doing is how to have creativity in the hard times. And I was reading his posts and it really touched me. Thank you, Mohammed Isa, for being here with us. I welcome Nishit. Nishit is one of our keystones of the India chapter. And Nishit has been involved in our group of members of the India chapters who've been actively engaged on the issues in Palestine, and and we meet regularly, and we are trying to understand what we can do. And Nishit has been a very, very important, has played an important role here. But he heads the Center for Social and Behavior Change Communications, and he has asked me, his one-line description of himself is somebody with a fire in his belly on issues concerning women and children. Thank you, Nishit. And we're very proud to have Rana Jajani here, who's a professor of molecular cell biology. And she's rated as one of the 100 most influential Arab women today. We also know her for her amazing work called We Love Reading, which has started about, on last count, 4,000 libraries in Jordan. And she also heads an organization of women in science in developing world. Thank you, Rana. There are a lot of people who are waiting to listen to you. So as we were discussing in the lead to this session, is that in the wake of Rafah, when you read news every day, and now that any lifeline to Palestine is choked, and the world looks on, and I cannot but help myself put myself in the shoes of a young child who probably feels abandoned by the rest of us. But that's not true. I feel for that child every day. But at the same time, I wanted to ask each one of you, because we wanted to, as we decided, we wanted to start this not on a very, very overarching macro view, but let's start personally, because that's what most important is how you think the experience of colonization or the lack of decolonization has touched you personally. Because that is the context on what we will then be discussing about the relevance of SDGs. So let's start on a personal note. Tasleen, can we begin with you?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. for me, in Africa, we've had a lot of issues, and just looking at the last 3 years, we've had a big issue with coups. And as we know, coups don't just come from nowhere. Coups are caused by something. And some of the reasons that the leaders or the military leaders or the military gangs give why they are perpetuating coup is that the leaders that they've elected or the leaders that are sitting in these positions, first of all, are corrupt. They work towards changing the constitution, which is supposed to lead the country. And so we've had an insurgence or an increase of coups in the last 3 years. We've had like 9. And there's the Gabon president, the sitting president, said that he was dissatisfied with what the previous leader had, and so he waited until there was that transition. And then you also see that in Sudan, they overthrew a civil leader or a civil president because they wanted to take it back to the military leadership. And so if we look at how it is done, is it still working? And then when these coups happen, they are funded by someone who is funding them, because we are running away from our colonizers, but then we are going to other colonizers. So there's also that aspect of neocolonialism. And in the process, people are dying, women are dying, and then our countries are continuing to be underdeveloped. Looking at the countries that have gone or have had coups, you realize that they have very bad or are doing very poorly in GDP. And so these are the things that we're supposed to look at. And in Africa right now, I can say that it's not so promising due to external factors, external interventions. Even our elections are usually it's not us who decide who we elect. Yes, we go through the elections, but then the people that are funding us, the people that are our colonizers, make sure that whoever they want to win is the person that will win. Even if you look at the minerals that we have, we only do like the primary production, and then now our value addition is done out there, and then now they bring back the goods for us, and they're at exorbitant prices that the people that are producing these goods and services cannot afford them. So that is where we are as a continent. And so we are, if I may finish there, because I can even go for a while. I'm a politician. Thank you.
Thank you, Tasleen. I'm sure you'll make an excellent politician, the kind people need. Yeah. Nishit, I want to come to you with this, the idea that in the whole system of colonization, there is a lot that we absorb knowingly, unknowingly, of the colonial mindsets. And we look at ourselves from the colonial eyes. And how do you think that is affecting us? But this is my question, but please free to take on how you like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sejo. For me, a memory from my childhood is what sparked the fire in me. I was probably around 10 or 11 years old. And this is just after the India-Pakistan war in 1965, 66, 67. Time magazine carried a cover picture, Time International, in which they showed a starving beggar, completely just bones, a bag of bones, holding a begging bowl with the words PL 480 on it. And on the cover picture, they had Uncle Sam in the Star and Stripes flag, pouring wheat from a sack which said PL 480. This sparked a whole lot of controversy in India. I was a kid then, and I had, our teacher explain this cover to me. Public Law 480 was passed by the United States to provide free wheat to India because India could not afford to pay. This memory has stayed with me since then. And my question was, if you come to my country for 200 years and reduce us from the top 3 GDP nations in the world to the poorest nation of the world, and you take away our resources and our wealth, is it okay for you to say we are a poor country? So this fact affected me. I worked in the corporate sector, I worked in communications, and I came into the development sector a little over 20 years ago. And the first thing that hit me was the UNCRC, the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of a Child. And I'm going to read just one sentence from that. This is Article 2. Every child has rights without discrimination of any kind, irrespective of the child's or his or her parents' or legal guardian's race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national, ethnic, or social origin, property, disability, birth, or other status. This is 1992. 1992. And then came the MDGs. I was in the sector by that time. And I thought to myself, oh, if this is the UNCRC convention, the UN convention, and all the countries of the world are signatories, then children are safe everywhere. I mean, they're protected, they're safe everywhere. And I thought, what a wonderful world this is. And then I realized, and I read up the history of how the UN was formed, and I realized actually that there are 5 countries who have a veto on everything, concerning peace, and no matter what any other country says or does, those 5 founding countries have a veto right on that. Then they brought the MDG goals, and they said it was over consensus and discussion. 10 years into MDG, from 2005, the Ministry of Statistics in India said India does not even have the formatting to collect data to measure MDG performance. This was in 2010. By 2014, they were writing it on their website that we didn't have. But by that time, for me, the stark difference was that, look at the children of Bangladesh. My dad was in the army and he was in the 1971 war, which freed Bangladesh. And we had 15 million refugees in India at that point of time. And that the burden of supporting those refugees, and supporting Bangladesh in those years was that of our country. The international community saw Bangladesh as a basket case. India had nothing to offer in the years that we were poor, prior to the Green Revolution of 1969. We had nothing to offer the world. So they could just cock a thump at us. And the same was the case with Bangladesh. The same was the case with Afghanistan. Who in the world bothered whether Russia came into Afghanistan or not? What do Afghanistan people have to give to the world? What do the Palestinians have to give to the world? Nothing. That's all the way the West looks at it. If it was a Saudi Arabia, which had been attacked by Israel, do you think the globe would have kept quiet? They would have taken $400 billion from Saudi Arabia once more and brought their army to fight for Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi has oil. What does Rohingyas have to offer to the world? So, this stark difference. And then the OECD, if you look at the growth of the OECD, and you look at the strategic initiative of the UN, which decides on social, it has now become just a talking shop. You have the group of 7, you have the group of 8, you have the group of 38, which is OECD. Then you have the European Union. So you have the 400, 500 years of colonialism started from 1415 by European nations, 5 or 6 European nations that counted the entire world. I actually read up recently that only 13 countries in the world were never colonized. Only 13 countries. And I remember 1884, 85, these 5 countries of Europe sat together and they said that the scramble for Africa, it's called. They divided Africa amongst those 5 nations. Which parts of Africa, which country will take? That was the 84, 85 conference. So, I mean, these things, are very hard hitting. When I came into the sector, these things, punched me like nobody's business. We knew that we had to stand for ourselves and make ourselves count. And the North will not come unless you have something to offer it.
Yeah. And Nishit, now the time has come that we stand for each other.
Absolutely.
And I want to bring in here Mohammed, and I want you to add to what Nishit has already built upon the UN structures. There are n number of structures of finance, of trade, of even aid. And from what I know, that even given the kind of trade and aid structures we have to date, from every developing country, more is extracted than is received. Much more is extracted. So would you like to highlight a bit about on these the structures of colonization which have not left us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before that, I comment on what was mentioned by my colleague. Maybe we need to clarify the difference between physical colonialism and intellectual colonialism. Palestine, my country, is under occupation, and its people do not enjoy their rights as the others do. But I do feel that we are one of the few nations that are independent, because we have the ability, or we still have the ability, to say no. And this is something that could be connected also with the structures that we have everywhere in the world, especially when we are talking about the UN. And these structures that are trying to control us in a different way. I do believe that what we live as a result for the ugly face or the ugly practices of the neoliberalism. I think that neoliberalism has its own impact on what we are living, especially when we are talking about the SDGs and the other issues. And for that, we need to stand together, rethink about all of the situation that we have, and also redefine the concepts. Redefine the concepts in such a way that could really reflect our needs and perspective as human beings.
Right. Can I bring you here, Rana? And I want you to tell us what is happening in Palestine today is connected to each one of us. How all the struggles and the conflicts, just like Tasleen had described, what is happening to Africa or what is happening to our countries, how is it connected and how we are in it together?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for creating this very important session today. I think we are at a time in history that is pivotal. It is I'm a very optimistic person, despite the horrendous tragedies and the genocide that is unfolding. I look for the silver lining. And to me, we are at a time in history where there is an opportunity to make a difference. Why? To answer your question. What is happening in Palestine is an example of colonial settler project. We thought it was all ended when everybody became independent in the last century. But unfortunately, this particular one, Israel and the occupation of Palestine, is still ongoing. And the challenge is that it is ongoing, and what makes it and sets it apart from other conflicts around the world. We have Sudan, we have Congo, we have Myanmar, we have Latin America, we have many. But what sets this one apart, Palestine, is because it's a colonial settler project. It's not a civil war. It's not two, differing groups of people arguing about something. And what sets it apart as a colonial settler project is the support of the former colonizers, the Western governments, the US, the UK, Germany, France, Canada, supporting it despite the youth in their countries, despite the populace who is against what is happening, despite logic, despite UN, humanitarian law, despite everything, they are still supporting it, which is a screaming show of that this colonizing has not disappeared. It is still alive, but has taken, as Professor Mohammed said, different ways and different faces and different facades that most of us have drank that Kool-Aid and believed it. We believed in equality. We believed in, yes, everybody's equal. It's only about we have to work hard enough. If we just talk, more enough, if we work more on our SDGs, the world will become a better place. But I've spoken with many legislators and policy people who say, even if you change the laws and the policies, it's not about that, because what is wrong is the structural barriers of the inequality in the UN and in international law. That's what makes Palestine kind of the poster of what is wrong in this world. Because if we solve the Palestinian problem, meaning, what does that mean? Meaning we showcase the hypocrisy, the double standard, the inadequacy of international law that we see today, then we can start solving climate change. Then we can start solving the challenges of inequality in trade. Then we can start solving patriarchy even, because all of those are hidden under the facade of white supremacy. And sometimes we have to have the uncomfortable conversations. These are uncomfortable conversations, but we cannot avoid them anymore because the price is too high. And that's why, to me, what is happening in Palestine is that it's a huge price. But we owe not just people who are Palestinian in origin owe it to the Palestinians and the people in Gaza standing up for what is right. As Muhammad said, they are the ones who are truly free, because nothing can stop them by saying, because they have lost everything in the sense that there's nothing to lose anymore. So they are totally free. But we as a humanity owe it to them, because they will help humanity save itself and move forward. And the true testimony is the youth, all the university students around the world who have seen the truth. Not just that, all ethnicities, all religions, and maybe most testimony is the Jewish Voice for Peace, and the Jews who are standing up and saying, don't use religion, not in our name. That this is about humanity and about every human being is equal, and not to, most importantly, radicalize religion, culture, ethnicity, and for us to be clear. So it's about simplifying and moving away all the arguments, the facade, the nice fancy words that distract us from the reality on the ground. All you need to ask yourself is it okay for so many children to be killed? It's simple. And any human being will answer the right way. And that's why we are at a pivotal time in history to what will we tell our grandchildren? Where did we stand on the side of history? When people say, how did slavery happen? How did the Nazis did what they did? How did that all happen? Well, it's happening now. And so we have a responsibility to speak up, however uncomfortable it is.
So, yes, absolutely right, Rana. And as we said, that the people of Palestine right now are paying the price for all of us not standing up for the Rohingyas, not standing up for the Afghan women, not standing up for Vietnamese, not standing up for the boat people, and the countless examples. But the time to stand up is now. If we stand up now, we will be actually historically, literally, metaphorically standing up for everyone. So thank you for pointing that out, and we will pledge to stand up wherever we are and whatever we can do. But as we go forward, I would request the people, the participants, to put in questions, and if we have time, we will definitely take up a few of them. So kindly type in your questions in the chat box, and I'll be looking at them. But meanwhile, I would request you to consider this, the idea of, as you said, Rana, very well, that we had been pretending all this while. Yeah. So there are not two parts to it. One is the pretension that we've all had. We were playing, games of philanthropy, development, UN, etc., etc. And a lot of us in this sector have done all this our life, including me. We've done it earnestly, right? And now we've realized the limits of it. So that is one part. So I'd request one of you to take that and how those limits have been reached. And the other part is the inability of the system, which is now driven by the arms industry. It's driven by the drug cartels. It's driven by crime. It's driven by multi-billionaire profiteering and this gross and obscene inequality, and this unwillingness or this helplessness of the system to get off the tiger of greed. So I want some of you to take the question on how we did not see it before, and how at this moment that we see it, it's making, what should we do? And some of you to take the question of how to tackle that tiger of greed which capitalism or liberalism is riding, and it will drive us into climate change, war, catastrophe. Yeah. So whoever wants to start.
May I?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, first of all, I think that what is happening in Palestine and everywhere in our world is an opportunity in order to, to redefine the status quo and come up with, let's say, innovative solutions to the challenges that all of us face, and also to rebuild the system. I think that we have to return to our civilizations. We have to be extremely proud of our civilizations. I mean, when we are talking about, the Arab nation, the Indian nation, the Africans, we need to create more connections between our, let's say, liberal way of thinking and our traditions and cultures. When we are proud of our culture, we will be able to have this protection system in which that we can reflect, our identity and, impose a new scenario of developing or rebuilding the system.
Can I also add on his?
Yes, absolutely. Please feel free. Yeah.
Yes, just as he said, we did not know about our history because whatever we were being taught was what these people wanted us to know, so that they can also whitewash whatever injustices they had perpetrated on us. And so now we are coming out, we are looking for better ways of knowing our history, where we came from, how we were colonized, and how we were hurt as a people, how we were moved, how the boundaries were even set. Because I can tell you that in Africa, how these people divided the countries was so unfair that you would find families were literally separated, and one family would go to the one country and one would go to the other country, which also brought a lot of stress among the people. So for us, understanding our history, understanding our culture, and also speaking about this to them so that they know that we know, and then now looking at ways of making sure that we stamp out these things, these vices that we've gone through, and also just healing as people who are already hurt. We have to also start from a point of healing so that we forge ahead. Because I was in a forum the other day, and one of the people or one of the participants from the Western countries said that the present people in the country were not part of the colonialists, so they don't feel like they should be answerable to us because they were not there. But then we are like, but you guys are still enjoying whatever that you took from us from then. Why is it that France has the most resources in terms of minerals, yet they don't produce any, they don't have any, they extract it from Africa and then they take it to their countries? So how are we going to do this? We do this by understanding how these things are happening, and also looking at ways of government coming in and working together and building blocks, and also ensuring that there's free trade within the global south, and so that it can be competitive and everyone is able to take part without fearing what the Western world will say. But I still believe that the Western world still owes some reparations, and whatever the minerals that they've taken from us, they need to pay us more. But this is something that we can also always do from just having sit downs and talking about what we deserve and what we are getting. Thank you.
So I want to jump on what you said, Tisleen, is that actually those who are colonizers and who are now have the majority of the wealth, although we are the minoritized majority of the world in terms of people and populations and resources. So how do we go about making it more equitable? Well, one thing is that all of us by default are told by the West that this is the way it has to be. These are the agreements that are in place. These are the things, and as if there's no other way except that way, because they think that is the only way. And I think that's when we have to stand up and say, no, we can come up with a better system based on our own wisdom, our own culture, our own experiences. And even we are smart enough to create something totally new that is independent of the West, that creates a whole new world order that not just solves our problems in the global South, but actually becomes a solution for the global North as well, or for the world. So it's not also we, as people of the global South, we don't divide. That's not our nature. Our nature is about collaboration. Our nature is about community. So we are different. We look at life and world and humanity in a very different way. So we don't want to play into them and us. We want to say that we have a different way of looking at the world, and we invite you to be part of it, but we will set those rules together, but really together, not in a patronizing or somebody controls and the other doesn't. Now, what does that mean? That as we create our own systems of value that we come up with, we insist that nothing can be done without us. Now, the problem is that most of the West wins because they force us to agree to what they want. But you know what? They cannot do anything if we don't agree to it. And they build on our self-censoring in our minds that, oh, there's no other way. Oh, I have to accept, and so on. So we need to decolonize our minds, be more proud and self-confident, and work south to south to come up with these solutions. And now is the time, because the world has lost trust in the West. All these rules and laws and equality, like the president of Colombia said, I was at the World Economic Forum, he said all these values have moved from France and liberty to South Africa. So it's time for us to take charge. And yeah, we're not going to do it right from the beginning. Yes, we're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. We're going to work together and we're going to make it happen. But most importantly, that nobody should move without us having a place at the table and having leading in those discussions in a community collaborative way, moving forward with true equity for all. And that means, if we want to look, what does that practically mean? That we have to come up with new systems of governance. The way the UN is working is not right. It was mentioned. Who are the 5 that veto the whole world when that's not fair? Those treaties where France can take all the gold it wants on a price that was set 100 years ago. That's not fair either. But why are those okay, but others are not? So this is a time to stand up and say, enough. There's double standards, there's hypocrisy. We want to set a whole new world going forward. And I hope Catalyst will be that place all over the world, coming together from the grassroots, trusting each other and working together to make a difference.
Wow. Yes, Rana. And we have to my invitation to ask question, we have a very interesting question by High Sport, and he asks, can redistribution of wealth and power become an SDG? Nishit.
Yeah, so, 3 things I just want to make, 3 points to in part answer that question and continue the arguments that everyone else of the panelists have made. Since 2009, for the 9th consecutive year, the world military expenditure has gone up to $2,443 billion. Israel's military spending in the last 1 year has gone up by 24%. If that is not an indication of the failure of the UN system to regulate the world, I don't know what is. If the UN system was meant to bring peace to a world, exhausted by the Second World War, it clearly hasn't succeeded. Now, if you look at the 2 initiatives, one that happened in the late 60s and early 70s in the Middle East, when the Middle East decided that the exploitation of oil by the Western world must end, and they will do rent seeking on the oil. What did it do? It lifted the Middle East region. It brought wealth to the Middle East region. And they were able to offer employment to vast numbers of Asians, South Asians, and Southeast Asians. It lifted up their homes. So, a classic example of how ending colonialism in a specific region can change this thing. Now, look at climate change. That's the third point I wish to make. In climate change, the South has been arguing that you have to finance the South's change in growth patterns if you want climate change to be stopped. You cannot place the burden on us when the vast carbon-producing economies are in the West. Now, one of our panelists made the point that you've been exploiting our resources for 200 years. In Europe, they fight about artifacts going back to each other's country. What about the resources you've taken back out? So unless the UN, links peace and democracy to the economic goals, it will never work. It will never work. SDGs will remain a standalone talking thing unless you bring peace and unless the UN makes countries which make conflict accountable for it. How do you do when Germany invaded Europe? They exhausted Germany's resources as reparations. So if Israel does the same or any other country does the same, the UN have to make them accountable. Otherwise, what is the big point of the UN? Unless peace is linked, peace and democratic actions are linked to SDG goals, and countries are made accountable, things will never change.
Right, Nishit. Now, I think what stands between this and what we want to achieve is our colonized minds, our colonized elites who are part of the systems. And third is our own inner colonialism, where we are colonizing our own people. Like as you were saying, Tasseline, I could think of our own indigenous people whose resources have been extracted and they have been left completely bereft of everything. So these three things: colonization of all our minds who are educated, colonization of our elites who are complicit, and our own inner colonialism by which we have colonized our own people. So how to fight all these three so that when we stand and say that it is our own history, our own tradition, we don't stand on traditions which are unjust. We don't stand on patriarchal and casteist and racist traditions within us, because we all also carry that. How do we fight our own inner colonialism before we re-own and redefine the SDGs? Whoever wants to start, please.
If before maybe someone else takes it over, one of the things that maybe can be done is when these people have projects in our countries, let's make sure that whoever they are misplacing or displacing is well compensated. Just like I was saying earlier, there's a project in Kenya, in the northern part of Kenya, where they're extracting oil, crude oil, and so many people are misplaced. They tried to fight, but the government fought back. The government that's supposed to defend them fought back, because I think the government was compensated. And so I think the government is part of the elites. And you see, they are on that part because they have something to gain. But what about the common person? The common person who doesn't have anything? Because I can tell you that where these things are, wherever there's minerals of any sort, there's usually war, and the area has very poor the quality of education is really poor, and maternal health, infant mortality rate is very high. And so you find this disparity, but then there's a lot of resources that you live in, but these people are not giving you anything. So let's as we move on, we must know how to make sure that when this extraction is being done, we are well compensated, and we are wherever we are being allocated to is at least reasonable and makes sense, and also does not also corrode our culture, because that is something that happens. You're removed from the northern part and you're brought to the southern part, a place that you've never lived in, and you're supposed to live with them peacefully. And that is also one of the causes that have actually caused the civil wars, because you're going to another person's space and you want them to embrace you, yet they also the space that they have is also small. And then we also have a shrinking livelihoods, because if they are extracting these minerals by themselves, then that means that you don't have anything else to do but just to roam around homeless and hopeless. And yeah, these are things that you can look at. Thank you.
I'd just like to add to the point that Tasneem has made on education. See, we know that the nationalists and the right-wing movements have been growing around the world. It also happened after the depression in the 30s, when nationalist movements grew in Europe, it led to war. Today, we are at a peak of nationalist movements around the world. But what is the opposite of it? Parochialism leads to this kind of a mindset. So globalization of education, rather than regionalization, is the answer. When education becomes globalized, when a child anywhere in the world has the right to education and has access to education of a global standard, that's the way to be able to end that mindset, that colonial mindset that you spoke about, Sergio. That is the way to do that. Education has to be the thing. So while MDGs did it did a lot towards primary education, but it isn't uniform everywhere. Right? And we know that millions of people study in educational institutions which only give you, let's say, religious instruction. So that also happens. So therefore, education has to be standardized, globalized, and every child must have access to the best quality educational. In Delhi, over the last 5 years in New Delhi, the municipal schools, which were terrible structure, they have been revitalized because 600 teachers were sent to the US for a 3-month program on teaching. The infrastructure was standardized. Every municipal school was upgraded with laboratory equipment, sports equipment, tables, chairs, blackboards, whiteboards, and computers, and everything. And the result today is that the municipal school performance of students outshines the private schools in Delhi. So education is the method to overcome that. That there is no, I mean, it's not about just about one vote per person. That the other thing is that all the international monetary institutions, IMF, World Bank, and all that, they go on the principle of $1 is equal to one vote. Whereas UN goes one vote is equal to one person, one country is equal to one vote. This is the way. But these two conflicting dogmas have to be brought together. It cannot be based on wealth constructed in the North countries over the last 500 years, which, as Tasneem has correctly said, which is based on exploitation of mineral wealth from poor countries, African countries, Asian countries, and so on.
Yeah, amazing. Yes, Rana, please.
So I'll build on that, and I want to share maybe personally. All of us and many of us are social innovators, and although we have people from other sectors, right, law, government, corporate, who are maybe here or in the audience. And I thought, I'm an academic, of course, but I thought that by social innovation, I'm changing the world. I work on reading and education, and if I do that, everything will be great, right? Yes, but to a certain extent, there's a ceiling there, right? And I believe that's the ceiling, that's part of the colonization, that, just work on your little thing and, spread it around the world and everything will be fine. Well, no, it's not fine. All the social innovators in the world will not have helped Gaza, because that's not the problem. That's not the issue. The issue is everybody to be left alone and to work on the grassroots, on their own people, within their own thing, things will be okay. So I think that has to be clarified, that as social innovators, we are also activists. And what is preventing us from actually changing the system, right? Because it's the system that's bad. It's not us. Humans have been humans. We have survived over millennia. For 200,000 years, we've been around. We are social innovators by nature. We all have it in us. Your grandmother is a social innovator. So we have it in us. What the problem is that there are the barriers that stop us. Whether you're talking about America for Black Lives Matter, what is stopping a Black American from succeeding is not working hard enough. No, there are structural barriers and racism that's preventing them. And it's not about working hard enough. It's about the Israeli occupation stopping it. So it's about then refocusing where the real problem is, and not to be deluded by little other things that are really not the problem. And they kind of like the Kool-Aid, they distract us from really the problem. And how do we get to know this problem? It's like when we connect. And that's what's so beautiful about Catalyst, that we meet each other. Oh, I hear about the problem in India, and I think, that's just like my problem. So it's not about me working harder, pedaling in my place. It's about me and the person in India and the person in Kenya and Nigeria and in Palestine and Latin America working together to find indigenous groups all over. What are those problems? And then we can tackle it together, because those who control the money, the power, the arms, they control because they count on us being deluded and working in silos, each one alone, thinking that that's how we solve the problem. And that's not how we solve it. So how do we do that? All right, this is nice talk, very hypothetical. How do we actually do it? It's about going back to the grassroots. Catalyst is one network around the world that can help us enable it to happen. The new concept that Giroux is coming up with, which is people and nature and to be the center of everything, and not about the structural thing, but how can we start each one in our place to find the connections and move forward? What does that look like? It means we have to create a whole new system. What does the system look like? I don't know. But that doesn't mean we have to give up and go back. Oh, we only have the old system and we have to fall back onto it as our default. No, this is a call that we can together trust ourselves. We've been around for 200,000 years to come up with a new system for finance, a new system for how we work together, a new system for governance of the world, to sit together and truly decentralize, each one working in their own equally. And that means we need to trust each other. So to your point, yes, even in our indigenous cultures, we have things that are wrong. Every culture has things that are wrong. Nobody's perfect, but it's about trusting each other there's no good and bad. It's about trusting each other, working together, communicating together, and building those collaborations and figuring out what we want to do together that we can go forward, and having role models. The problem also that most of our role models come from the West. Our children, as they grow up, they only see those role models, whether it's women or men. So also we need to, as we trust each other, highlight each other. Be proud that I know Seho and what she's doing, Muhammad, Tasleen, Nishat, and everybody else, and talk about them so that our children see themselves who look like them, dress like them, speak like them, which brings me to language. We only speak English. Why don't we go back to our own languages and work on using technology to manifest our communication around the world? Because technology is a tool that could be used for good, but also to use it so I can find a woman who speaks her native language and she will inspire us, instead of only choosing those who speak English, who, by the way, when we speak English, we've already been brainwashed already, because we speak English one way or another. So how do we use the language is so important, and in a way for us to connect together. Which brings me to my last thing, as well as language, is writing. We need to write and share all this information amongst us. And again, technology becomes a tool for the good if we use it in the right way and in the good way.
Just one postscript to Rana's point in this, Rana, you're right, we have within us the methods, but what do you do when even within your community, you are stopped from accessing? 1.5 million Afghan women now are not able to go to school or college or university. 20 years of bringing women into school and university in Afghanistan has now clamped down from 2021 December. Women are now no longer working, they are no longer able to access. So now the Afghanistan people may have the intrinsic ability within them to do that. But in times like this, we have to reach across the border and force international systems, so that those women can come into the education place, into schools and colleges, and study and grow their communities, grow their country, and grow the world.
Thank you for bringing that up. So these are some of the conversations we need to have. What does that look like? So I've been speaking with a lot of Afghan people about this issue, and I'm just going to very briefly, like a 1 minute, talk about this. The problem with Afghanistan is the interference that happened from everybody outside of Afghanistan, ruining it for their own purpose. Way back, this is like 50 years ago, when America first went in and because of its own wanting to use the resources of Afghanistan, and messed it all up, because it was such a great country with great people, a lot of advancement compared to other countries around the world. So they messed it up. Now, bringing it back is not going to be easy, right? We should not also be naive and believe in magical fantasies that, if we only bring in the international community, they'll solve it. No, the international community is going to make it worse. The first step is to say, I don't want anyone in here. Leave us alone as Afghani people to solve our own problems. Just don't interfere. And then the people inside will hold each other accountable. Would anybody in America want me to go and interfere in their problems? As a researcher, I've seen many researchers. Nobody will allow somebody who's from the global south to solve the problems of Germany or solve the problems of France, because why are we interfering in their problem? Similarly, we will solve our problems alone. We don't need you. You want to advise us, fine, but we take a decision if we want to use your advice. So this is what I mean by equity, by trusting each other, by communicating. But also we need to be practical. Afghanistan is going to take time, but it will not happen unless they trust themselves and hold each other accountable, because they know each other. There's the intricacy of the culture. There's things are compounded and built upon each other. When you go in and cut and make a change that doesn't take everything into consideration, you actually do much worse than bad. Look at medicine. If you go in and do you give a drug and you don't take into consideration the whole body, you actually do much more harm. It's about understanding the whole system and from within to solve it from within. So that's just a short answer to Afghanistan, and then compared to other places around the world.
It does lead to despair. Afghanistan, Iran, the situations, the difficulties they have in solving their own problems, it does lead to despair and cynicism.
Yes, yes, yes. If you do not mind, panelists, I want to give 1 minute to one of our youngest participants here, who looks young or from the picture, so I'm presuming, Amel. Amel is from Algeria. Amel, you've been raising your hands. I give you a minute. Please go ahead. Please unmute and go ahead.
Hello. Yes. Can you hear me?
We hear
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for the compliments. I'm not that young, but yes, I am from Algeria, and we know what is colonialism. We know after 60 years what can do and what ought to do. I agree with the idea that we need to be there in the global north and work with them. But actually, after what happened in Gaza, I think we need to look at us and our role and how strong we are, especially grassroots organizations, and what we do to empower them, because they are the power. Be it COP, climate change, or politics, or the role of women. All of these active grassroots organizations are not helped, are neglected, and I think that's the source of the problem, one of the sources of the problem. So we need to empower the women we have, empower the grassroots organizations, raise our voice, and raise awareness, because part of it is there. Now we see the reality, we see the truth, we see what colonizers want and what's happening and all that. We're not going to cry, but we will empower ourselves and start working from down up. Thank you. And the language, sorry, may I just add this point? We try to work with some grassroots organizations in Algeria and the Middle East, and so many of them, they don't speak English. We couldn't access any platform, international platform, because we don't speak English. And that was a real and big hurdle. That is, as well as the other things, neglected and overlooked. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amel. And I see a lot of enthusiasm in the chats. And there is a very, very strong proposition that we continue this dialogue beyond CCW and probably beyond getting some more members who are not in the Catalyst right now, Taslin included. I will request Sandhya to put a QR code to a WhatsApp group that we have formed in the wake of Palestine struggles. And this can, as Sandhya says, be the beginning of South-South collaboration. So please use that QR code. We also have an offer from Mishri. Mishri, can you please post your email ID again, and so that people can see it clearly? And please write decolonize in the subject line when you write to Mishri, so that she can separate all those mails who want to be part of these discussion circles. And we promise we'll get back to you. Sandhya, you can also share screen and put decolonize the QR code on the screen if you can for the moment. And can I have a show of hands or a thumbs up from the participants in this group who agree to the idea of continuing this dialogue? Because the most important part, as Rana has said, that we need to talk to each other, we need to trust each other, and we are okay about making mistakes, but we have to, it's our mistakes that we will be making and not their mistakes. Yes. And yeah, here is, you have a couple of minutes more to see this QR code, and if you can scan it, please. Yeah. Yeah. If there are any other questions right now, we have a few minutes. Yeah. Okay, you cannot take a QR photo. Yeah, you have this email. Mishri, can we have your email ID again, please? Yeah. Or I'm also writing down my email ID in case you have missed that. And I was just hoping we would, if we had a decolonized ID rather than the same Gmail ID that we are all forced to use. But soon enough. So this is my email ID. And if you have not been able to scan the code, or if you have not got Mishri, yeah, Mishri has put her ID again. You also have my email ID. Yeah, please go ahead, Rana.
Yeah, I just want to, because there's only maybe a minute left, I just want to tell everybody it is so heartwarming to see how the beauty of humanity. Yeah, I believe in trust in every human being, and I think every human being is inherently wants the best for themselves and for all the whole world. You know, do unto others as you want others to do unto you. This is inherently part of our DNA. And that's how we survived. And I believe in that. And I trust everybody, that everybody is doing what they can when they can. And I think it's about portraying that trust and putting that trust into others is how we can move forward. And for those who go home after this, you know, I always go and get inspired and get excited. And then I go home and think, okay, well, but what am I going to do? Right. And I feel, oh, I don't have anything to do. So I want to leave you with something to think about to do, which is to first trust yourself, you know, believe in your gut feeling, and go do what that gut feeling asks you to do, and reach out to others. You know, make sure that you email someone, whether it's Sanhoy or Mishri or anyone in this room or others, reach out, have a conversation and talk about what you can do. And also it's very overwhelming. You think, oh my God, the world is terrible. I have to change the world. No, to just think what you as one human being can do within your own little circle. One thing I am doing, because I wake up every morning feeling distraught by what I see on what's happening in Gaza, what I hear from my relatives, and the only thing I'm doing that I feel is tangible is the BDS, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, because actually this is good for the planet. This is good for climate change. This is good for local economy. So what I do is I only buy from local organizations or companies products, and I make sure I check every product I buy. And so this makes me focus on the local. I support the local economy. This is good for the environment, and it stops the money, because somebody said that these people who are doing the war and the money, they don't understand ethical arguments. They don't. So it's not you don't waste your time about ethical arguments. Cut the source, cut the money. They understand money. So if we all boycott, then we cut the money. And if I do it myself and I ask 5 people to do it, that's easy. And then each one of the 5 asks 5. We can create a ripple where we can have an influence on changing how the world flows, that it's value-based, ethically based, morally based, and not money-based and profit-based.
Beautiful. And if for those of you who are interested, you can easily find those websites which are listing the companies that are actively supporting genocide and genocidal policies across the South, global South. It is not hard to find. And we are 2 minutes over time. If somebody has something you have to say, please go ahead, say it, and then we will wrap up. Anyone?
May I?
Yes, Mohammed.
I do believe that mutual respect, you know, is one of the main pieces in order to change the whole system. You know, I like so much what being mentioned, you know, as a part of our discussion. But you know, how I can change the system, and at the same time, I don't feel that I'm respected from the other. You know, this is one of the main issues that we need to focus on, especially when we are talking about the education and how we are going to change, you know, this mind from a colonized mind to a free one. Without respect, you cannot, you know, work with the others. You cannot build this trustship that Rana was talking about. I think that this is really what we need to invest on, especially when we are educating our children, because they will be the hope of tomorrow.
Yes, can I close? Can I say something? Just to add on what Rana said, that we should work from our own small spaces, and then over time it will just grow by itself. We are currently a group of young people going around teaching children the right history that they should know about Africa and the global South, and what we have experienced and what they should do as young people to ensure that we don't go through the same, or to ensure that we stamp out colonialism. So yes, thank you. And Rana, it was so nice. I've learned so much from you, and I hope that we will meet in other forums. And I'm also grateful for this conference, because yeah, it has been a learning curve for me. Thank you.
Well, I started with feeling a lot of anger and sadness, and I now feel a lot of love for all of you. You are here. I leave you all with a lot of love, compassion, and hope. And yes, we continue. We continue to fight for the future, for this planet, for all our children and everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.